What up, and welcome back to another edition of LSU Live. I'm your host, Lewis Johnson, and we got a lot to talk about today, but we also have a very special guest. I'm gonna introduce him as if y'all don't know him. We got Booger McFarland of ESPN here on LSU Live with an exclusive interview. Um, Again, as if you don't know him, we're talking about first team All SEC, first team All American, first round draft pick out of LSU, brought back the Magic with Jerry Donato, and two-time Super Bowl champion. What up, Booker? Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, man. Glad to be here, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. What about yourself?
Hey, man. Life is well, buddy. Life is well.
Good to hear it. Well, look, man. I'm sorry you were subjected to that LSU game last weekend. We all saw it, offensively and defensively, and we know that it wasn't the prettiest effort to say the least. Um, so today we had some interesting comments. Brian Kelly came out. He had another press conference, and he doubled down on his statement of Garrett Nussmeier being completely healthy. One reporter asked if he aggravated an injury. He said no. So I'm gonna tell you, watching the game, the ball doesn't come out the same. If you ask me, of course I'm not in the locker room. So with Kelly saying that he's healthy, and we're not seeing the same guy, and you also see some bad decisions in there. In your opinion, is Nussmeier struggles more of a physical deal, or is it more of a mental problem right now?
Well, I think it's a combination of a lot of things, right? Like I haven't seen the injury report, nor am I the trainer, so I can only go off what the coaches say. He was kind of dealing with something during the preseason. He's been dealing with something, and BK said like he's on the other side of it. And so putting that in football terms, like we all once the season starts, like we're all banged up. I think where it pertains to Garrett Nussmeier is we see the velocity on the ball and the trajectory of the ball, and we see the ball placement not be as precise as it was last year. And I think that's what has a lot of LSU fans concerned. Even the one to Chris Hilton on Saturday, where Chris Hilton had the DB beat by 5 or 6 yards and the ball just kind of floated. I don't know whether he underthrew him or whether he couldn't get the ball there. I just know he's not making the throws that we've seen him make last year, and I think that's the biggest thing for me. I can only take BK at his word because I'm not inside the training room or the locker room. I think that's number one. Number two, I think when I watch the tape, I see a quarterback that just doesn't seem right. Like something's off, whether or not it's the mechanics, whether there's a lingering, nagging injury, whether he doesn't feel comfortable maybe with some of the plays. I'm not sure. But I think the one thing I am 100% sure is that he's not playing at a high level right now. And I think all LSU fans expected your senior quarterback to be playing at a very high level, and we're just not getting that right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And you hate that for him. As you said, you can only take it for what it's worth at BK's word, but you hope that if he is healthy, then whatever he's fighting, he kind of gets over it. And a bye week couldn't have come at a better time. Or if you down in your spirits, it might be a bad time for it. Let's say that he is healthy. Let's say that there's nothing physically wrong with him. And if that's the case, then how much do you think this offense can realistically improve the next time they come out?
I think it's a combination of a lot of things as far as the improvement. So if he's healthy and he gets back to throwing the football the way that we're used to him throwing it, the offense can definitely improve. I don't think the offense is a Garrett Nussmeier problem. I think the offense is a combination of a lot of things. You know, everybody makes a lot about LSU running the football, and why? From a football perspective, if you're one dimensional and you're going against teams that have equal talent, now I'm not talking about Southeastern or Louisiana Tech, but you're going against SEC quality competition and you're only one dimensional, then you're really easy to stop. Ole Miss had the worst defense in the conference, the worst defense in the conference, and they were stopping LSU. Why? Because LSU couldn't run the football. So I understand what BK is saying about we got to get our passing game going. We got to become more explosive, but you have to get favorable looks. And I'll paint it this way for everybody out there watching. If you're looking at the defense that's going against LSU and you see two safeties at the back of the defense, then those are not premium looks to throw the ball against. You got to be able to run the football against that look because running the ball is simple math. If we have 5 offensive linemen and a tight end, that's 6. If they have 4 defensive linemen and 2 linebackers, that's 6. So we have what we call a hat on a hat. You give the ball to the running back, you should be able to run the football 6 on 6. The reason defenses get away from that 2 safety look is so they can gain the numbers advantage. And so, therefore, if they bring the safety down, now you have 4 defensive linemen, you have 2 linebackers, you have a safety. That's 7 people. On offense, if I have 5 linemen and a tight end, that's 6. So now you have favorable numbers. So just running the football and stopping the run is really simple math. And so when LSU is getting into these passing formation and there's 2 safeties back, Tom Brady couldn't throw the football against that. Peyton Manning couldn't throw it. Now, sure, do you have passing combinations that can beat cover 2? Absolutely. Do you have things that you can run against drop 8? Absolutely. But more times than not, man, it's tough to throw the football when they have 2 safeties that are 15 yards back on either side. That's why I think anybody who knows anything about football was very concerned that LSU couldn't run the ball against Florida. I've been concerned for several weeks about their ability or lack thereof to run the football. So that's what it comes down to. Can this offense get back going? Yes. Will the big plays come back? Sure. We haven't seen the big 50, 60-yard touchdowns yet. And you're not going to see those until defenses start to respect the run. If they don't respect the run, then LSU offense is going to continue to have to dink and dunk, and you're not going to see Parker or Hilton or Anderson or these guys get explosive plays because as a defensive coordinator, why would I put a risky defense out there to stop the run when you can't run the football? There's really no need to.
Gotta have balance. Gotta have balance, man. And I'm glad you made that point about Ole Miss. Ole Miss is not the toughest defense you're going to see by any stretch in the SEC. So you're going to have more balance. And we saw, unfortunately, the same thing last year. You saw a lot of the same thing. And my opinion, I think you're probably a little bit more explosive at receiver this year. So it's a shame, you're not putting more of an emphasis on the run to get some better looks. Look, by no stretch of the imagination will I blame the defense for what happened last weekend. They got hung out there to dry, way on the field way too much, got doubled up in plays in the first half. You did have some critical mental mistakes here and there, and a lot of third and long success for Ole Miss. Now, would you have defended them any differently, and specifically Trinidad Chambliss any differently?
Hindsight is always 2020. He's a dual threat quarterback, and so you've always got to kind of figure he's going to run the football at some point. To your point, LSU was on the field a lot, and they did a really good job of stopping Ole Miss's offense. But Lane Kiffin, like I'll tell anybody, I think in all of football, this is not just college. This is not pro. This is all of football. I think Lane Kiffin is one of the top 10 play callers in all of football. That's Sean McVay. That's Andy Reid. Lane Kiffin is right there with those guys. That's how good Lane is. And so for this defense to hold Ole Miss to 24 points and only 7 in the second half, I thought they did a really good job. Now, was there room for improvement? Absolutely. I think from a secondary standpoint, you got to help your secondary out by giving them some different looks. We love to play man coverage. Every now and then, you need to back up off of them and play a little zone. Let your corners rest a little bit. Blake Baker has done a phenomenal job with this LSU defense. I think sometimes what gets LSU in trouble is we do a lot of stunting up front, meaning you'll see a defensive lineman changing gaps. Well, Ole Miss ran behind the stunt one time and got a touchdown. That's going to happen. That's part of it. But I think through it all, if you look on the season, and help me from if I miss some, Clemson had 10 points. Ole Miss had 24. Southeastern had 7. Louisiana Tech had what? How many did Louisiana Tech have?
I think 7.
7. Florida had 10.
And from Florida.
So LSU's defense has been really good, although not against the greatest competition. You can only control who you play, but there's not going to be a better play caller that they face all year than Lane Kiffin. So defensively, they have to continue to get better. We're playing a lot of young guys, especially if you look at DJ Pickett in the secondary. I think he's one of the better corners in the country. Mansour Delane is absolutely, he's been locked down. I think Weeks and Perkins Jr. have been phenomenal. I love what we're doing up front. New defensive line coach, Kyle Williams, is doing a really good job. Defensively, I'm not as concerned as I am with the offense. But what happens is it's a cumulative effect. if the defense is on the field double the time of the offense, they're going to wear down. And when a defense wears down, you can't play as fast. So it's a combination. That's why we always talk about team football, and making sure that we play complementary football. LSU's got to play complementary football, run the football, have a 6 or 7 minute drive every now and then, let the defense rest so those guys can get fresh again.
Yeah, got to help those guys out on defense, man. If you ask me, they've done a hell of a job so far this year. Can't say enough about what Baker has done, and to me, he's a proven product. He's improved everywhere he's gone. He's improved the defense. Glad you brought up that point about the defensive line, because I wanted to ask you this. In your opinion, what's the biggest difference in this year's LSU defense from last year?
I think the speed and athleticism. You got McKinley is playing really well. 88's playing really well. I like what Six is doing off the corner. I just love how the guys are getting after it, and the guys are playing physical. And these guys are trying to play faster. It's more of a penetrating system that they're trying to get upfield and create havoc. So I come from a defense, man, where if you want to affect the offense, you get them, you get in the backfield. Like we used to say, put a knife in the offense. That means you got to get vertical and you got to try to split them in half. And I think these guys are doing a really good job of that this year. I'm continuing to see growth in Dominic McKinley. I think he can be a superstar. I like what 88 does. I think he's probably the most athletic guy that LSU has up front. It was too bad to see Gabriel get hurt. I think he was coming on. Um, Peyton, I like what he's doing. He's got to continue to rush the passer better. So I think just overall, they're better players. They're more athletic, and they're starting to play at a higher level. And you got to give a lot of credit to the defensive line coach, Kyle Williams, Blake Baker, because those are the guys that are demanding that effort from them.
Absolutely, absolutely, solid unit. You really can't go wrong on that defense so far, because your linebackers are looking good. Your secondary is Mansour has been shut down. The lane has been shut down. So really, this defense as a whole has been very impressive. So a few minutes ago, we talked about Ole Miss is solid. I'm not going to take anything away from Ole Miss. Great offensive coach. You got some tougher teams you're going to be playing this year. You got some more talented teams, and being more talented doesn't make you a better team, but you're going to face some stiff competition. So you look around the SEC, who else has impressed you, or who has probably impressed you the most? LSU still has to play like A&M, Oklahoma. You got to go to Alabama. Who's impressed you the most in the SEC?
It's one of those things where you're starting to still kind of see which team, who's kind of gonna be who, outside of Ole Miss, because I've been extremely impressed with this kid Trinidad from Ferris State and what he's done. I think John Mateer at Oklahoma. You look at before he hurt his thumb, I thought he was the leading candidate for the Heisman Trophy. Like he's changed the entire fortune of the Oklahoma program. Diego Pavia, like you talk about a kid who brings swagger to an entire program. I don't care about what his NFL prospects are. I just know he's one hell of a college quarterback. Um, and when you look at Arch Manning has started slow. I still think he's going to wind up being a good quarterback at some point, if not this year, then next year. He's just way too talented. DJ Lagway, another kid that started super slow. But I think when you talk about the guys who've impressed you so far, I think it has to be Mateer, it has to be Pavia, it has to be Trinidad Chambliss.
Yeah, can't go wrong with either of those. And the fun thing about it is to see somebody come out of nowhere like a Chambliss. That's one of the more positive stories you get from the portal. It's a lot of negative connotation whenever you bring up the transfer portal. But you see a story like that, and this guy is fully taking advantage of his opportunity.
Yeah.
All right. I got one more, and I'm going to let you go, man. And this one is more directed to off the field. Since Kelly is coming to LSU, he's had some hits and misses in both the portal, like we talked about, and in his staff. And you know that he can put a good staff together. You get guys like Baker or Mike Denbrock. You have some misses like Matt House, and Sloan is still writing this story, but he's got some growing to do. Let's say we get to the end of the year and something has to change, and it's not going to be Kelly. If you are the AD, how much do you trust Kelly at this point and finding an effective OC to make the most of what he's working with?
Well, I think that's a road and a bridge that you got to cross when you get to it. I think Brian Kelly, Scott Woodard, the AD, has trusted Brian Kelly to do this job. And you're right. He's had some hits and misses, but that's every staff. That's every staff as far as coaches, as far as players, the portal, like those things. I think BK has been a really good coach from a standpoint of understanding what's needed and then making the change to get it. Matt House wasn't working. He made the change. He's had to adjust from a secondary. He went back and got Corey Raymond. And I think when you look at the things that have needed to be done, he's done. And so if we get to a situation at the end of the year and there needs to be a change made wherever, whether that's special teams, whether that's OC, whether that's the strength and conditioning staff, I think BK has the autonomy there in the program to get it done. I think a lot of people are down right now on the offense because seemingly it's been one or the other the last 4 or 5 years. LSU's had a great offense with Jaden Daniels, no defense. Now we have a defense that I think is championship worthy, and there's no offense. Almost kind of harkening back to the Les Miles days when the offense couldn't move the football. But here's the difference. Even with Les Miles, you knew LSU was going to be physical, and they were going to hit you in the mouth. They were going to run the football, and the defense was going to be lights out. Like when I always look at a team and try to figure out what their identity is. And I think it's important for LSU to establish the identity. Right now, we know the identity of this defense is pressure, pressure, pressure. What's the identity of the offense? And I think that's the question that LSU and Joe Sloan and Brad Davis and Cortez Hankton and Frank Wilson, that's the offensive staff. They have to answer that question. And if and when they don't, then I think that's up to Brian Kelly to figure it out. Those guys make a lot of money, man. Like Brian Kelly's making upwards of $10 million. All those guys are making millions of dollars to figure out how to put LSU in the best position to win. And I think it's their job. And let's be realistic. LSU's 4-1 going into the bye week. You got South Carolina at home in Tiger Stadium at night next Saturday night. I think a lot of people are going to be anticipating a much better LSU performance. And if they don't get it offensively, then the noise is going to get louder. Because coming off a bye week, knowing the issues that you had, if you don't address those issues, if you don't change some things, and we come out of the bye week and you see the same things, I think the noise is going to get louder. And I think the reporters after the game are not just going to ask Brian Kelly why you can't run the football. They're going to ask him, why is Joe Sloan still calling plays? Because if you continue to see it, I think that'll be the issue. Joe Sloan hears the noise. He's been in Louisiana a long time. He came from Louisiana Tech. Like, he understands it. They just got to go out and get it done. And I think it's up to Tiger fans to hold Brian Kelly accountable, and you hold this entire staff accountable, man. That's what fans do. I'm a fan. I played there. I'm an alumnus there, but I'm a fan. And so I'm going to hold them accountable as far as putting players in position to succeed. It's one thing if you lose. Like, we've all lost games. Sometimes the guy in front of you just outplays you, man. It happens. You tip your hat and you move on. But when you get out coached, I have a hard time accepting that. And I think Saturday in Oxford, LSU's offensive staff got out coached. I don't think that's my opinion. They may disagree, but that's my opinion. Let's see how they bounce back from that and see what they do against the South Carolina team that has, I think, the best edge rusher in the conference. He's going to be coming off the corner wearing number 6. They're athletic up front. They can play defense. And so they're going to face a better defense in Tiger Stadium next Saturday night than the one they faced in Oxford. So it's not going to get any easier, man. And then you got what do you have after that? You got A&M at some point, whose defense is really good. Alabama's defense. So, like, when you play in this conference, man, there are no excuses. But ultimately, the buck stops with the head coach. He's the decision maker. To get back to your question, he decides what's good and what's bad. And I think we all have to just sit back and let it play out and realize right now they're 4-1, and let's just see where it goes.
Great point, man. Great point. It could be worse, and I also like that you pointed out not every call has been a bad call for him. Let's be fair to Kelly, and let's see how it plays out. But again, man, thanks a lot. Really appreciate your time. Appreciate the insight and all facts.
Anytime, man. Have a good one, man, and much success on the podcast, buddy.
All right, thanks a lot, man. All right, all right. Booger, of course, had a lot of opinions, as Booger always does, but it's some very valuable insight there, and we appreciate it. I think it's important to keep things in perspective. Yeah, that loss last Saturday, that was ugly. It's hard to see. It's hard to sit there and watch a game like that where you're that ineffective, just playing listless on offense, and you leave with a bad taste in your mouth. But you're still 4-1. You get South Carolina at home, and nothing is going to be promised from here on out. I think another positive to take is that's as bad as we've seen that LSU out. Even though it's been bad all year, we hadn't seen it be that bad. So who knows? Maybe the team gets healthier. Maybe Aaron Anderson gets healthier. Trey Green gets healthier. You got Paul Mabenga out at O-line. You got Weston Davis out. So this bye week is coming at a great time, I think, and it's not all bad, but nothing is promised. Man to go comments, great explanation from Boog about why the passing game is anemic. Oh yeah, that was a great explanation. You got to have balance. And I think Nuss took too much heat last year when everything was put squarely on his shoulders. With it's bad enough to not have a running game, but when you don't even try to have a running game, that's unacceptable in my eye. Break it down, Luke. I'm trying, man. I'm trying. Again, Brian Kelly had a press conference today, and it was a short one, and he could not have wanted to be there any less. BK looked so uncomfortable and ready to go. He couldn't have looked more uncomfortable if they had a gun to his head to make him do the press conference. It was that bad. Tried to rush off after a couple of questions, but he did speak on Paul Mabenga, and that's a high ankle sprain for him. And Mabenga is one of your left guards. It's always bad to get an injury up front, but when you're struggling so much, it's even worse. And it's not an injury that you can rush back from. High ankle sprain, you just got to wait on it. It's kind of like a hamstring. So you'll see how it goes. You'll see more DJ Chester. Kelly was also questioned about a comment he made over the weekend about not really liking the offense. And I think you got to have some accountability there because it's not like you can't do anything about the offense if it's something that you're seeing and you don't like it. But anyway, he said he didn't have any answers for when Ole Miss dropped 8. And that is the truth. They did not have any answers. For one, they didn't try to run the ball, but it's hard to come up with answers when the game plan seemed to be just throw wide receiver screens. And you got that many people in coverage. And you can't protect. So, yeah, you didn't have answers, but it's on you. He was asked about Carius Kern on a brighter note. Carius Kern didn't have a perfect game by any stretch, but he's a true freshman. He's athletic. And in Kelly's opinion, Kern reminds him a lot of Emory Jones. And most of y'all will remember that Jones came in with Will Campbell as a freshman. Excuse me. Didn't start from day one like Campbell, but he did start his freshman year. Went on to anchor the line, the right side of that line, for 2 more years before leaving for the league. So we can only hope that Carius Kern goes on to have a career like Emory Jones. When asked about the backup quarterback, Michael Van Buren, Kelly said that they have packages for Michael Van Buren, but paraphrasing here, they're not taking us out for a short yardage package. So long story short, Michael Van Buren going to stay on the bench where he's been. And that comes as no surprise to me, but that's where we are. Michael Van Buren will not we don't see any playing time coming from him. I think, like I said, Saturday, it would take something drastic. And you don't want anything to happen to Nussmeier like that. But that's what it would take for Buren to come in my opinion. He's also asked, like I mentioned to Booger, if Nussmeier aggravated any injury that he had coming into the game, and he repeated that he did not. So that's all you can do is go with it. Whether he's really hurt or whether he's not, you can't do anything about it, and you can't really drive yourself crazy trying to figure that out because it is what it is, and you hope that he'll feel a little better. Even if he's not injured, he's got to be hurting after taking the hits he's been taking the past few games. So let's hope that Nussmeier can come out reinvigorated and ready to be closer to the guy we saw against Clemson than what we saw against Ole Miss. And look, it wasn't like a Heisman type of effort against Clemson, but he's making the throws that you asked him to make, and you ran a functional offense, and he wasn't making mistakes. This offense can be pretty effective with the amount of athletes they got if he just does that. Doesn't have to be anything crazy. We got more comments. Great review. Thanks, K. Johns. Drunk Vigo. BK forever. Hey, if it's going to be BK forever, he's going to have to pick it up. Let it go again. The offense does continue looking at me. Who are some good OC candidates in your mind? You got a few, but it's not like somebody that's just sitting around. It's somebody that you got to go and take. We just got to coach better, but the players got to play better. Yeah, Drunk Vigo, it's a combination of everything. The players got to play better. One thing we don't see as fans is a lot of times you got some good calls going out there, but it looks bad when you don't execute. And even things that you might be able to question after the fact, like why are you handing the ball to this guy in this situation when you got another guy that's more suited? Yeah, you can question stuff like that, but there's still a lot of times when if you just would have had better execution, it would have worked anyway. On that note of execution, yeah, the LSU offense has been bad, and I don't want to make this a completely negative show, but we also got to be honest in what we're seeing, and we got to address it. We got to talk about it. This LSU offense is bad, and it's reaching the point of being historically bad, like that 2023 defense. So let's look at some numbers, some ugly, ugly numbers. Some of y'all might know this, some of you don't. LSU has not scored on an opening drive this year. We are now 5 games in. You come out on opening drives with the best plays you got, scripted stuff that you come into the game. Okay, well, we can bank on this, and you haven't scored. And in most of these instances, you haven't even sustained long drives, let alone score. So, no scoring drives so far on that first drive of the game. LSU currently has 524 rushing yards as a team, which is good enough to make LSU the 119th ranked rushing offense in America. And if 119th doesn't sound bad enough, there are 7 running backs in D1 football. And I'm talking about running backs, not teams. 7 running backs that have more rushing yards than LSU as a team. Well, if we can't run the ball, at least we can pass it. We got all these receivers. We got Nussmeier. Nope, can't pass it. Just as ugly. You are 107th in passing yards per completion. Goes back to what Booger was saying about the dinking and dunking. You can dink and dunk and get some completions and maybe help your quarterback get in the rhythm. You cannot dink your dunk all the way down the field consistently to a win. You just can't. You got to have balance, and you got to have some variation to your passing game. 77th ranked red zone offense. And, of course, you're going to have a bad red zone offense when you don't run the ball. It goes hand in hand. The field gets condensed. It's tight. It's not as much room. It's mano-a-mano at that point. You're not going to out-scheme everybody to easy points. So that's 119th in running, 107th in passing yards of completion, 77th in red zone offense, and stat I made up, 134th in common sense. And, of course, there's 134 teams in college football, D1. And when I say common sense, look, I don't want to rag on the coaches too bad because it's hard to be a coach. I get that. the average person can't get to where some of these guys are, not knowing anything about football. The average person can't work the kind of hours that these guys work. So you respect what they do. You understand that you got some sharp guys on the staff, but there's a difference in having the capacity to carry out a role and being ready for that role. And that's what I look at when I look at a guy like Sloan. And like Booger said, we'll let it play out. Things will change. This offense won't look like this week in and week out, I don't think. Unless we do have an injury and it's worse than we thought. I don't think it can get much worse than what we saw. We know for sure that the approach to your offensive scheme and the play calling can get better. But you're just seeing a lot of stuff. The reason I say you're last in common sense, you're just seeing a lot of stuff that just makes you scratch your head. You throw out swing pass in a critical third down situation to Caleb Jackson. Not saying that Caleb Jackson can't catch, but out of your running backs you got, that's probably the last guy you would think of when you come to like a receiving back. You can't run the ball, and I hate to hop on this, but you can't run the ball, and you got Harlan Berry on the bench. Why you going to get him? Why'd you go and get the guy if you're not going to let him give you a spark or at least try? And not only do you have Berry on the bench, you got Nuss on the field when he's giving you absolutely nothing. Now, do I expect them to bench Nuss in a situation like last weekend? No, I don't expect it, because you go attach to these guys. He did everything right. He waited his turn, and you want the best for him. I want the best for him in his senior year. But what he was giving you wasn't going to elevate the team. It wasn't even going to be a compliment to the team. So when you're getting absolutely nothing at any position, let alone quarterback, you got to see what else you can do. That's just all it is to it. Now, can this offense improve? I think it will improve. We saw a situation last year where you had some similar issues and not being balanced enough and not attempting to be balanced enough. And we saw BK just straight up take the playbook in the Florida game and say, hey, look, we're going to run the ball. And they did. They ran the ball more. You didn't block well and you didn't protect when you did pass it, so you still lost. But that momentum kind of carried on to the next game, and you go on to beat Vandy. You go on to beat Oklahoma. You go on to beat Baylor in the bowl game, and you might say, well, yeah, but what is that? Who are you? That's not like great competition. Well, it ain't bad competition, and it's somebody, it's better than losing. It's better than what we saw last Saturday. So I think this offense can get better. You're definitely going to have to further develop your approach as an offensive staff, and I think make sure that you're using your personnel in a better way. You're smarter about how you do that. One thing for sure you're going to have to do is run the ball more. And you talk about the run blocking issues. Everybody has something to say about the run blocking issues for LSU. Well, they're not going to get better by not running the ball. I do know that much. I was never an offensive lineman. I was never an offensive line coach. But ability is one thing. And you got some guys, look, recruiting rankings ain't everything. You know that if they said that he was the best guard or tackle, it doesn't necessarily mean that. But you're not going to miss on all of these guys. You can't tell me none of these guys can play. So I think we got some mental stuff going on, and you just you're not developing that mentality to go out and just maul people. So you have to run the ball more to get there and to correct those mistakes that you're making that are preventing these runs that get stopped at the line of scrimmage from breaking out with explosive guys like Caden Durham and Harlan Berry to more explosive runs. There's no way around it. You got to run the ball more, and out of the quarterbacks you have, neither one of them can thrive. No quarterback can thrive. As Booger would say, Tom Brady can't continue to throw into a defense that's dropping 8 people back. You're dropping 8 people back in coverage, and you can't block. It's just asking for trouble, if you ask me, out of an offense. Awesome interview. After hearing Booger's perspective on LSU right now and these stats, what do you think LSU can do to improve this season? Well, I think they can run the ball, as I just said. Be a compliment to your defense. I'm not worried about this LSU defense at all. If you're not getting any better play at quarterback, I think, hey, see what Van Buren has, see if he can spark you. At the very least, he can avoid trouble when that line breaks down. And I think we know at this point that that offensive line is inevitably gonna break down. And it's not to say that Nussmeier can't adjust and make the plays that he has to make. But if he adjusts and he compensates for breakdowns in the offensive line, it's got to be by passing. Somebody's got to be open. A check down has to be available. Van Buren is a guy who can just make a guy miss, and he's not going to go off and run like Michael Vick, but he can buy you some time. And when you got receivers like that, if you can just buy yourself some time, somebody can get open and somebody can make a big play. So look, you got a long way to go. You still got South Carolina. You got Vandy. Vandy is not a pushover. Vandy beat Alabama this year, and they haven't gone anywhere. It would not shock me one bit if Vandy played Alabama tough or even beat them this year. It's a team that is not going to beat itself. Vandy's not going to make mistakes to give you the game. And LSU is showing right now that they will. They will make the critical mistakes. So their game is not a gimme, and it's at Vandy. A&M is one of your more solid teams in the SEC. They can run it. They can pass it. A very explosive passing game. They're not going to hit you for a super high completion clip, but they throwing for big plays. They're pushing the ball down the field. Vertical passing game, as good as a group of running backs that you would see at the college level, and a stiff defense. A&M, you get them at home, and you better be glad you got them at home. At Bama. Bama looks a whole lot different than what they look like in week one. Bama does not look anything like the team that got embarrassed against Florida State, and you saw linebackers getting decleated and their heads knocked off. Bama is solid. Ty Simpson is getting better and better. He's decisive. He's accurate. He's probably a better fit for what Kalen DeBoer wants to do. And that's nothing against Jalen Milroe, but it's just more the style of quarterback. He's closer to Penix than the Milroe was. So Alabama's also a tough game, and that defense is also tough too, to go along with what Ty Simpson is doing. Arkansas, it's a rivalry game. It's never going to be an easy game. You can't count on it being an easy game with Arkansas. You just can't. You get them at home, so that's a good thing. But after Arkansas, you got to go to Oklahoma. Everybody you playing against can beat you. Everybody except, well, I mean, you play bad enough against Western Kentucky, they'll beat you too. Troy beat you a few years ago. But anyway, there are no gimmies, but the season isn't over at the same time, so you got to keep it in perspective. I think we'll find out a lot about the resolve of these guys coming back next week against South Carolina, who, of course, is peaking exactly at the right time to play LSU. South Carolina started off slow. Didn't look great. Got housed at Vandy. Speaking of Vandy, they got absolutely just embarrassed, pulled their pants down against Vandy. But, yeah, South Carolina's coming to town, and I don't want to see a conservative defense on 3rd and long when Lenora Sellers is back there. But, of course, I'm not going to put too much of this on the defense. The defense needs help. They need help desperately. Great show, Lewis, but I need to get off. Hey, we getting up there, Shannon. Go and do your thing. In other news, we do have some recruiting news. LSU didn't get a commitment today, but you did send a new offer out to a guy I want to mention. Interesting prospect. Right now, it seems like Franklin Parish in North Louisiana is just on the heater right now. You got Des Ellis coming to play cornerback, playing quarterback right now for LSU. He's already committed for the 26th class from Franklin Parish, and an offer went out today to junior running back Trey Martin. Trey Martin is, how do I say this? He's just a dog on both sides of the ball. Trey Martin is a running back. I'm not sure what position LSU is recruiting him as. I'm gonna have to find that out because he's also a great defensive player. Very physical guy, very explosive, strong, but he is fast. He's a 4.4 guy. Went off against Calvary. They almost came back after getting down 23-0 against Calvary, but interesting prospect who is kind of underrated right now in my book, but could definitely be a big-time player running back for LSU in that 27 class. So that being said, as always, like and subscribe. I want to thank Booger again for coming on, and I'll see y'all later. Signing out. Lewis Johnson. Follow me on TikTok and Twitter. CFB Lou.